Hey there, namaste. So, in terms of working with the Divine Feminine, a lot of women are getting more interested in, what is the Divine Feminine and how can they work with that, how can they increase that energy in themselves. And this is something I am also, over time, I've been interested in, and it's ebbed and flowed. But I'm seeing now that it has definitely been a current in my life. I have, at times, there are what are called sort of avatars, like Mother Mira is one, I believe she's still alive, and Amachi, that are these, coming out of the Hindu tradition, that represent basically the Divine Mother, the Divine Feminine, and I've always been interested in them and felt drawn to them. Only more recently, in this life, I should say, I really feel like I'm starting to work with some of the practices related to the Divine Mother and the Divine Feminine. And so what's so interesting about this is, I feel like it really is very developed in the Hindu tradition. Now, Hinduism, I think the actual translation is the, not the eternal tradition. I'll look it up, but it actually says something like, it's not, don't just think of it as just to India. And a lot of Western women and men, especially with the spread of yoga, have basically been incorporating a lot of practices that did develop out of Hinduism. They have a really very specific breakdown of goddesses, some of which actually relates across to Buddhism. Like Tara is actually... there is a Tara in Hinduism. She relates across, though, but she's more pronounced in Buddhism. Or they'll have a goddess in the Hindu tradition, and then she'll have a different name in the Buddhist tradition. So there's definitely overlap. So what I'm saying, though, is that we can actually work with these goddesses, and maybe the Western way to think of them is these archetypes. But I believe in Hinduism, they're really considered aspects of the divine. And the best way to think of that, as I understand it at this point, is that, and it makes sense to me, not even just intellectually, but I kind of get it, is that if you picture the divine as one, it's one thing, one vast, beyond what our mind can contemplate. And then it breaks into two. So then you get into a yin and a yang, right? Which those phrases we sort of like, oh, yin and yang, but I mean, these are like religious and spiritual terms, yin and a yang, that duality, so it breaks down. And so these goddesses, as I understand them, especially as a Westerner, you can work with their specific energies. You've heard of Kali, who is linked, at least superficially, with destruction and transformation, breaking things down so that things can start fresh. The goddess Lakshmi, associated with prosperity, but not just money at all, but health, well-being, spiritual, like fullness, love, like this feminine, very, very positive, very, very nurturing, giving energy, Lakshmi. And then there are many variations. So there are all these different goddesses, Parvati, then they're like local names for some of the goddesses. So as a Westerner, you can work with these different goddesses and start to develop qualities related to what they basically bring out and what they help increase. And it is really fascinating. It can be part of your spiritual practice if you are drawn to it. So I'm actually going to recommend a book. One of the wonderful books, if you're really interested, because it's pretty thick, okay, you can see how thick that is. It's called Awakening Shakti, and it's by a woman called Sally Kempton. And beautiful, beautiful cover. So this is one book that the subtitle is The Transformative Power of the Goddesses of Yoga. Now she's naming it the Goddesses of Yoga. Of course, you have to name things in a way that people will recognize. She's not saying the goddesses of India or Hindu goddesses, even though that is what they are. That's the origin. And I just think that's important to say. But she's saying the goddesses of yoga because, of course, that's how in the West, we would think of them. So this wasn't going to be a book review. Maybe I'll review this book if folks are interested, if I see there's interest. But if you're interested in working with the goddess energy, especially these Eastern goddesses, do check out this book. It is really good, and I think I will do a review. It's from Sounds True is the publisher. And again, it's by Sally Kempton. I'll put a link below. And but yeah, maybe I'll do a separate review. But she really takes you through different practices. What had come to my mind is, as a woman of color, as someone of, and again, then you say African descent, and someone was telling me, well, everybody's African because everybody, which is true. But I mean, you know, in this life manifesting, usually when we say African American, we mean someone who's got, you know, brown skin. It's so, this particular woman was saying she'd like a designation that just went with how people looked, not saying necessarily they're African or they're Chinese, or I don't know. It was interesting. But my whole point was to say that a lot of people of color were from very diverse backgrounds. And so, you know, I know in my background I'm actually from Jamaica, and in Jamaica there are many people of Chinese descent, Chinese people. There are many people of Southeast Asian or Indian, as well as people as African, and all of it mixed together. So I just want to say, in saying that, whatever your background as you're watching me, is that you may be drawn to goddesses from various parts of the world, and I wouldn't underestimate the fact that you really may have some of that goddess connection in your bloodline, is what I'm trying to say. So for myself, I know that I have some native Indian, like Caribbean Indian, in me, and I would not be at all surprised that, you know, probably like great-grandfather, generations that I'm no longer aware of, would have some East Asian and some Indian, because again, in that milieu in the Caribbean, and where people were brought over to work and as indentured servants, or were enslaved and brought there, there was a lot of mixing. So to say that, whatever your, you know, racial or ethnicity, if you're drawn to a particular goddess spirituality, I would say, you know what, it might be in your bloodline or even in a past life. I strongly believe, and that sounds really woo-woo, so hopefully you're not watching my channel if that's too woo-woo for you, but I really, just from experiences I've had, have a sense, and I've also been told by psychics and intuitives, you know, in past lives, I was doing a lot of these practices anyway, from the East, from Asia, because in fact, that's where I was. So I'm just saying, follow if you feel that you're connected to, whether it's Celtic goddesses or Norse goddesses or Native American, trust and investigate that in terms of looking for the divine feminine. So thank you so much. I will do a review of this. Leave a comment if you'd like one, or get in touch and let me know. All right, and I'll do a thorough book review. I'm still in the process of reading this, okay? It's really, really thick. And I'm focusing on the particular goddess that I was interested in. So I actually may not read the whole book now, but it's in my library. All right, thanks. Be well. Bye-bye.